The diner was almost empty when Simone wiped the last table for the night. Rain tapped gently against the windows. Not yet a storm, but steady. The neon sign buzzed outside, casting a soft pink glow across the linoleum floor. The place smelled of coffee, ketchup, and endings. Simone had come to love this hour. When the noise quieted, when her thoughts got louder, she tucked a loose curl behind her ear and moved to the booth near the door. The last one. A child had sat there earlier with an older woman. Simone hadn't seen their faces clearly. It had been busy. She only remembered a flash of pink sneakers and braids. As she bent down to collect the used napkins under the booth, one caught her eye. It had been folded and stuffed behind the salt shaker. She unfolded it, expecting crumbs. Instead, she found a drawing. It was made in pencil. Rough, childlike, but hauntingly specific. A stick figure girl. A woman with curly hair. A small house with a sagging roof and a short white fence. There was a tree beside it with crooked branches and a tire swing. Simone's heart stopped. It was her house, the one she used to rent 6 years ago. Before the baby, before the hospital, before everything fell apart. Her fingers trembled as she stared at the drawing. And then she saw the words written across the top in a shaky, uneven hand. "My mommy used to live here. I want to find her." Something sharp lodged in Simone's chest. Her knees weakened. She sat slowly in the booth, holding the napkin like it might burn her. Her breath came in small, shallow gasps. She hadn't read those words. She had said them 6 years ago. To a baby who, they said, didn't live past her first hour. A baby she never saw, never held, never buried. They told her she had bled too much, that she passed out before she could say goodbye. When she woke up, they said the child was gone, that there was nothing to be done, that she had no rights, no next of kin, no father to claim the child, no form to sign, no death certificate, no photo, just absence. Simone had carried that silence ever since. And now it was talking back, on a napkin. She clutched it to her chest. Tears blurred her eyes, but she refused to blink. She memorized every line, every word, every accidental stroke of a child's pencil that seemed to scream, "You were right not to forget me." A voice startled her. "Hey, you all right?" It was Amira, the evening hostess. Maybe 21. Braided hair, sharp nails, sharper instincts. Simone swallowed. "Do you know who was sitting here earlier?" Amira glanced at the booth. Little girl, older lady, comes every Tuesday morning. That's her spot." Simone blinked. "Tuesday morning?" Amira nodded. "Yeah, she always takes her food to go. But today, I guess they sat for a bit. Real quiet, polite kid." "Why?" Simone opened her mouth, closed it, then whispered, "Did she leave anything else?" Amira shook her head. "Just that napkin." Simone folded it gently. Not like trash, but like something sacred. "She drew this," she murmured. She knew my house." Amira's eyebrows lifted. "You sure?" "Yes." Simone stood. Her voice steadied, but barely. "I lived in that house 6 years ago. It's gone now. Bulldozed last year. But no one could have drawn it unless they'd been there. Or unless someone told them about it." Amira frowned. "You think she's your—" Simone didn't answer. Her hands were still trembling. But her eyes had found a kind of fire that hadn't lived there in years. "I need to find them," she said. "Can you check the receipt?" Amira hesitated, then walked behind the counter. A moment later, she came back with the printed slip. Delilah H. Simone's blood went cold. She knew that name. Not well, but enough. A janitor at the hospital, always quiet, always watching. Her mind started racing, and for the first time in 6 years, her grief was no longer still. It was moving, cracking, searching. Simone stepped out into the rain without her coat. The napkin was tucked safely in her bag. Her shoes splashed through puddles as she crossed the parking lot, heart thudding so hard it shook her ribs. Somewhere in this city, a little girl was drawing memories Simone never got to make, and she was going to find her, no matter what. Simone didn't sleep that night. She sat at the kitchen table long after the rain had stopped, the napkin laid out in front of her like a crime scene photo. It had dried, but still felt heavy. Too heavy for a child's drawing. Too heavy for paper. She reached beneath the sink and pulled out an old shoebox she hadn't touched in years. Inside were fading scraps of a life paused mid-sentence. A hospital admission form, a laminated bracelet with her name, a grainy photo of her, pregnant and glowing, taken just days before it all fell apart. She had kept them, not because she wanted to, but because throwing them away felt like burying a child without a grave. Her hands hovered over the box, then rested, then clenched. They never gave her a body, never let her hold her daughter, never showed her a certificate. Just a voice, cold and rehearsed. "We're sorry she didn't make it. That was 6 years ago. She had bled out on the delivery table. Woke up alone." And by the time she could ask questions, the answers had already been buried under layers of protocol and pity. She never cried. You passed out. There wasn't time. But now there was a drawing. A sentence only Simone remembered ever saying. Her fingers trembled, but her jaw locked. She needed to see that child again. The next morning, she traded her apron for a hoodie and took a long bus ride across the city to an address printed faintly at the bottom of the diner receipt. Rosewood Apartments. Nothing about it felt magical. The place looked tired. Cracked bricks, broken mailboxes, old flyers peeling off community boards. A playground sat on one side, its swing chains groaning in the wind. That's when she saw her, a little girl, maybe 6. Cross-legged beneath a maple tree, scribbling furiously into a sketchbook. Her tongue peeked out of the corner of her mouth in pure concentration, exactly the way Simone used to draw as a kid. Simone's breath caught in her throat, her curls, her posture, the way she shaded the rainbow with short, focused strokes. It was her. Somewhere inside, Simone already knew. She took a step closer, but stopped when she saw the woman sitting nearby. Delilah, sitting on a worn bench, knitting, eyes scanning the sidewalk with the kind of vigilance you don't fake. Simone ducked behind the park's chain-link fence, heart pounding. Delilah hadn't changed much. And the girl, Layla. She didn't know her name yet, but that didn't matter. The lines on that napkin matched the sketches in her lap, and the shape of her hands. Simone had drawn with those same fingers once, as a child. She pulled out the napkin again and held it up. The lines, the roof, the tiny tire swing, the words. My mommy used to live here. How could she know that? How could she draw that? Unless someone had told her, or she had been there once, before she was taken. The memory surged before Simone could stop it. She was back in the delivery room. The lights too bright, the voices too far. Pain roaring through her spine, her body failing her, hands pressing down, machines beeping. She was bleeding everywhere, then nothing. When she woke up, her arms were empty. She remembered the voice of the nurse. Cold, tired, detached. There's nothing to see, honey. You need to rest now, Simone had begged. Let me hold her. Just once. But no one came, and no one answered. A voice snapped her back. Layla, time to go, baby. The girl jumped up, clutching her sketchbook, and ran to Delilah, slipping her hand into hers like it was the most natural thing in the world. Simone stepped back instinctively, as if punched in the chest. Layla. So she had a name. One Simone didn't get to choose. One someone else had given. And yet, in every line of that drawing, Simone could still feel her own fingerprints. She turned away before the tears made it harder to walk. That night, she sat in silence, staring out her window. The city below moved as if nothing had changed. But something had. Her daughter had a name. She had a face. And a family that wasn't hers. But the ache in Simone's chest didn't come from jealousy. It came from the injustice of erasure. She was a mother. They had taken her child. And they never even let her say goodbye. Now she had a face, a sketch, a clue, and maybe a chance. Simone didn't go back the next day, or the day after. She needed time, to think, to feel, to not lose her mind. But the image of Layla's face, the way her curls bounced when she ran, the curve of her smile as she held that sketchbook, none of it would leave Simone alone. It followed her into her dreams, into the steam rising from her morning coffee, into the silence between customers at the diner. It was like hearing a song she used to know by heart, one she never got to sing. By the fourth day, she couldn't stay away. She returned to the park just after noon. Same bench, same tree, and there they were again. Layla was coloring with intense focus. Delilah sat beside her, sipping from a thermos, knitting half-heartedly. Simone stayed behind the fence for a while, heart hammering like a traitor. Then she stepped forward. She approached slowly, offering a small wave. "Hi," she said, voice soft but steady. "Mind if I sit?" Delilah looked up, guarded. "Do we know you?" Simone shook her head. "No, I see you here often. Thought I'd say hi." Layla glanced up, then smiled, wide, curious, unafraid. Simone's chest tightened. Delilah hesitated, then nodded to the empty part of the bench. "Suit yourself." Simone sat, leaving enough space to respect the boundary. Her hands trembled in her lap, but she kept her face calm. Layla looked over. "You're really pretty," she said, grinning. Simone laughed softly. "Thank you, that's very kind." "I like your earrings," Layla added. "They sparkle." Simone leaned in slightly. "I used to wear earrings just like those when I was your age." Layla blinked. "Really?" "Really. My mom said they made me look like a star." Delilah sipped her drink. "She's always talking to strangers," she said, almost apologetic. "She's sweet," Simone replied. "Curious. That's a good thing." There was a moment of quiet. Layla had gone back to her coloring. Then Simone asked carefully, "What are you drawing?" Layla held up the paper. "A house, with a big window and a garden." Simone's breath caught. The shape of the roof, the crooked path, the swing. It was almost identical to the one on the napkin. Slightly older, more detailed, but unmistakable. "It's beautiful," Simone whispered. "You're very talented." Layla beamed. "Do you like drawing?" she asked. Simone nodded. "I used to draw all the time when I was little. Mostly houses, rainbows, people I missed." Layla tilted her head. "Me too." Delilah glanced at Simone, suddenly sharper. "What did you say your name was again?" Simone froze for half a second, then smiled politely. "Sam," she lied. "Short for Samantha." Delilah nodded slowly. "You live nearby?" "Used to, long time ago." Delilah didn't speak, but her body stiffened, barely noticeable to anyone who wasn't looking closely. Simone kept her gaze on Layla. "You remind me of someone," she said softly. Layla grinned. "Who?" "A little girl I dreamed about for a long time." After 10 more minutes, Simone stood. "I should go, but thank you for letting me sit. It was nice." Delilah gave a curt nod. "Sure." But Layla jumped up. "Wait, can you come again tomorrow?" Simone blinked. "Why?" "Because you're nice, and you listen, and you said I was talented." Simone knelt down, heart breaking from the weight of wanting to say yes to everything Layla would ever ask for. I'd like that, she said. If it's okay with your grandma. Delilah hesitated. Her eyes flicked from Simone to the girl, then back again. Then slowly she nodded. That night, Simone stood in front of her mirror. She stared at herself for a long time. Her skin, her eyes, her tired jawline. She could see it now. Traces of Layla in her own face. Or maybe it was the other way around. Maybe she'd always been looking for herself in her daughter. She whispered the name like a prayer. Layla. The syllables felt sacred. Across the city, Delilah was pouring herself a second glass of wine, hands unsteady. She stared at the napkin she had pulled from the trash days ago, the one with the drawing. She had told Layla to stop writing nonsense like that, told her never to leave things behind. But she hadn't thrown it away, couldn't, because the words haunted her too. My mommy used to live here. I want to find her. Delilah crumpled the napkin, then uncrumpled it. She couldn't stop trembling. The next morning, Simone stood outside St. Augustine Memorial, the hospital where everything had changed. 6 years ago, she had walked in pregnant, terrified, and alone. She had never expected to leave with nothing but silence. Now the building looked different. New paint, a fancy sign. The lobby smelled like lemons and money. But her body still tensed as the doors slid open. Time doesn't erase memory. It just repackages the pain. She stepped up to the reception desk. The clerk barely glanced at her. Can I help you? I'd like to access birth records from 6 years ago, Simone said carefully. August 19th. My name is Simone Albright. I delivered a child here that day. The woman blinked. Are you the mother of the patient? I was. A pause. Then, you'll need legal authorization. Simone forced a polite smile. I'm not asking for someone else's file. I'm asking for mine, for my daughter's. She was stillborn. They told me, but I never saw paperwork. The clerk shifted uncomfortably. Most files that old have been archived off-site, but I can put in a request. Simone leaned in. Can I speak to someone who worked in the maternity ward back then? Maybe a nurse? The clerk hesitated. Almost everyone's turned over. We've had full staff changes since COVID. Let me see if anyone's still listed. She typed for a few seconds, then frowned. There's one retired nurse still local, Joan Keller. She left the same month you're asking about. That detail hit Simone like a stone. Could I have her contact? The clerk hesitated again, then scribbled an address and phone number. Simone thanked her and walked out, heart pounding. She didn't call Joan Keller. She went straight to her house. The small cottage sat at the edge of the city, with wild roses creeping over the fence, and a wind chime that sounded like silver rain. Simone's hand shook as she knocked. A long pause. Then a woman opened the door. Mid-60s, soft cardigan, suspicious eyes. Yes? Ms. Keller, I'm Simone Albright. I think you were working at St. Augustine 6 years ago, August 19th. The woman stiffened. I don't talk about the hospital anymore. I lost my daughter that day, Simone said gently. At least, that's what they told me. But I never saw her. Never held her. And now I think she might be alive. The old nurse's face didn't change, but her eyes did. She opened the door wider. Come in. They sat in a quiet kitchen. The kettle whistled softly. Joan poured tea but didn't drink. I remember you, she said. Not your face, but the case. Simone's breath caught. There was a lot of confusion that night, Joan continued. You came in late. No family. Emergency C-section. You lost a lot of blood. We stabilized you, but the baby... They said she didn't cry, Simone whispered. Joan nodded. They said. Simone's hands clenched. What does that mean? Joan looked down. Sometimes babies don't cry right away. Sometimes they get labeled too fast. I wasn't in the room. I was charting in post-op. But afterward, I heard things. Quiet things. Things we weren't supposed to ask about. Like what? Like a nurse being called to a room that wasn't hers. A baby being transferred without a tag. A janitor leaving early with a bundle. Files being signed by the wrong supervisor. Simone's stomach twisted. You're saying someone took her? I'm saying I don't know, Jones said, her voice thin. But I quit 2 weeks later. Couldn't stand the whispers anymore. Simone stared at her tea, untouched. Was her name Harris? She asked quietly. The nurse. Jones' head snapped up. How do you know that? I remember the name, barely. And the woman raising my daughter now, Delilah, used to work at the hospital. Janitorial staff. Joan went pale. Simone stood slowly. I'm sorry to bring this to your doorstep, but I needed to know I wasn't crazy. You're not, Joan said. Something was buried. I just didn't know how deep. Simone left with her hands shaking. As she stepped into the fading afternoon sun, she looked up at the sky, and for the first time in years, felt fury stronger than grief. That night, she sat at her kitchen table, files spread like battlefield maps. She had a name now, Harris, and a connection. She didn't know how yet, but something was covered up, and she was going to dig, even if it broke her. Simone didn't sleep again. She rarely did now. Her kitchen table had turned into a war room. Notes, printouts, scribbled timelines. One name sat circled in red ink in the center. Nurse Harris. It wasn't much, just a surname. But names have a way of bleeding into truth if you push hard enough. She called the hospital, pretending to be a student working on a healthcare ethics thesis. She emailed old co-workers. She searched nursing registries. Nothing current came up. Then finally a hit. Harris, Margaret J. Retired nurse. Last licensed at St. Augustine Memorial. No current address on file. But a P.O. box in a quiet town 2 hours north. Simone didn't hesitate. She packed a small bag and drove through the fog and farmland until she found the post office listed. It was nearly empty. The clerk barely looked up. Can I help you? Simone showed the note. I'm looking for Margaret Harris. The man studied the name. She comes in Thursdays. That's tomorrow. Simone nodded, masking her pounding heart. Thanks, just needed to deliver something in person. Back in the city, Delilah sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the napkin again. She had flattened it, tried to iron it between books, but the crease down the middle wouldn't disappear. Neither would the fear. Layla had asked again that morning. Why don't I look like you, Grandma? Delilah had choked on her tea. You do, she lied. Layla had squinted. But my skin's darker, and my hair's curlier, and you said my mom died. But what if she didn't? Delilah had snapped then, harsher than she meant. Stop asking questions that don't need answers. Layla had gone quiet. Not scared, just disappointed. That was worse. Delilah stared at her reflection in the bedroom mirror. She looked older lately, not just tired, haunted. Simone returned from the post office and drove straight to the park. Layla was there, as usual, sitting cross-legged in the grass, coloring. Simone didn't sit this time. She stood near the fence and watched quietly. After a moment, Layla noticed her. She jumped up, waving. Miss Sam! Simone smiled. Hi, sweetheart. Delilah turned. Her eyes narrowed. You're back. Only if that's still okay. Delilah hesitated, then nodded stiffly. Layla ran over, her sketchbook under her arm. I made a new one! Simone knelt down. Can I see? The drawing was of a house. A big one this time. 3 figures stood in front. One tall woman with big hair, a little girl, and a second woman holding a book. Simone's throat tightened. Who are they? She asked gently. Layla pointed. That's me. That's Grandma, and that's... I don't know. She's from my dreams, but she's always drawing too. Delilah's jaw clenched. I think, Layla added softly, she's my real mom. The silence froze around them. Delilah stood. Layla, it's time to go. But I just got here. Now. Layla flinched. She looked back at Simone with wide, confused eyes, then trudged away. Simone stood slowly, heart pounding. You don't have to be afraid of me. Delilah didn't look back. But I am. That night, Layla sat in bed holding her stuffed rabbit. Delilah stood in the doorway, watching her. "Grandma," Layla whispered. "Did I ever have a mommy?" Delilah didn't answer right away. Then, "I've always been your mommy." Layla shook her head. "Not really." Delilah stepped inside, kneeling by the bed. Her voice cracked. "I found you when no one else wanted you. I loved you when the world didn't care. Isn't that what a mother does?" Layla's lip quivered. "But someone else made me." Delilah looked away. "I don't want to lose you," she whispered. Layla reached out and touched her hand. "You won't, but I still want to know." The next morning, Simone returned to the post office. At 9:17 a.m., the door opened. A woman in her late 60s stepped in. Gray uniform, worn purse, tired eyes. Simone stepped forward. "Ms. Harris." The woman froze. Simone pulled a photo from her pocket. The old ultrasound from 6 years ago. She held it out. "This was my daughter. You were there, weren't you?" Harris looked at the photo, then at Simone, and for a split second something shifted. Fear, recognition, guilt. She turned to leave. Simone stepped in her path. "I know what you did, or what someone did under your watch, and I'm going to find the truth, even if you won't say it." Harris didn't reply, but her hand trembled, and that was enough. Simone almost didn't sign up. The flyer at Layla's school asked for parent volunteers for the upcoming field trip to the city's Children's Art Museum. She wasn't sure if she'd be allowed. Legally, she was still a stranger, but her hands moved faster than her fear. She wrote her name down anyway. 2 days later, she was on a yellow school bus, her stomach a knot of nerves, wearing a lanyard that said "volunteer" like it meant something. Layla didn't notice her at first. The children were loud, excited, buzzing about the museum, the gift shop, the lunch packs. Simone stayed in the back, helping hand out clipboards and crayons, watching only one child. Her. Layla was radiant, her curls pinned back with glittery clips. She was bouncing on her toes, holding her sketchbook like a treasure chest. Simone kept her distance. She was only here in case. The museum was massive, full of light, sculpture, sound, and color. The kids wandered from exhibit to exhibit in clusters. Teachers tried to maintain order, but the museum seemed made to be explored, not controlled. At one point, Layla settled at a drawing station. She pulled out her own pencils, Simone noticed, and began sketching furiously. Simone stayed behind a glass panel, watching, until suddenly Layla was gone. One moment she was there. The next, her seat was empty. A ripple of alarm spread through the adults. The teacher checked the restroom. A few students said she went to see the rainbow wall, but she wasn't there. Simone didn't wait. She broke from the group, running through the halls, calling Layla's name quietly at first, then louder. The museum became a maze. Glass stairs, mirrored corridors, interactive spaces. She found her 10 minutes later, curled up in a corner behind the sensory room, shaking, clutching her sketchbook like a shield. Simone dropped to her knees. "Layla!" The girl's head snapped up, her eyes wide, wet with tears. Then, without hesitation, Layla ran into her arms, and the word came out in a whisper. Fragile, involuntary. "Mommy?" Simone froze. Her body reacted before her mind did. She wrapped her arms around Layla like they were made to hold only this child. Tears slipped silently down her cheeks. She didn't speak. Couldn't. Layla sobbed into her shoulder. "I thought I lost everyone." "No," Simone whispered finally, voice breaking. "You'll never lose me. Never again." The room spun quietly around them. But inside that embrace, time paused. A child had called her mother, not in a courtroom, not under pressure, but in fear, in instinct, in truth. A staff member found them a few minutes later. "Is she yours?" the woman asked gently. Simone hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, They returned to the group. Delilah had arrived. Someone had called her when the girl was missing. She stood at the entrance, pale, shaking. When she saw Layla safe, she ran forward, but stopped short when she saw the way the child clung to Simone. "Layla," Delilah breathed. "Are you okay?" Layla turned. "Grandma, I was scared, but she found me." Delilah's eyes locked with Simone's. No accusations, just something tired, something defeated. "She called you," the older woman began, then let it go. Simone simply nodded. Delilah didn't fight. Not that day. Later that night, Simone lay awake with her phone on the pillow beside her, staring at the last photo she had secretly taken. Layla's drawing from the museum. 3 figures. A little girl, a woman with big curly hair, and a second woman with glasses, holding her hand. Above them, I wasn't lost. I was being found. Delilah didn't sleep that night. She paced the living room, the floor creaking beneath her steps. The lights stayed off. She didn't want brightness. Not after what happened. Not after Layla had looked her in the eye and called someone else mommy. She had always known this day might come. She just hadn't known how much it would shatter her. Layla had clung to her that night when they got home. Tired, safe, warm. But something was different now. The child didn't ask the same questions anymore. She didn't need to. She had seen the answer in Simone's arms. Across the city, Simone was also awake, sitting across from a lawyer in a quiet office that smelled like paper and anxiety. The woman, young but sharp, skimmed the documents Simone had gathered. Names, dates, the napkin, Joan Keller's handwritten statement. The conversation with Nurse Harris, summarized from memory. "None of this is legally binding," the lawyer said carefully. "It builds a narrative, but we need medical records. DNA. Simone nodded. "I'll do it. We'll need a judge's order to collect a sample from the child." "She's my child." "I believe you," the lawyer said. "But the court will need proof." Simone's hands clenched. "Then let's get it." That weekend, Layla stayed unusually quiet. She sat in her room with her crayons scattered around her, drawing on every scrap she could find. Magazine backs, grocery lists, paper bags. She didn't speak much. But she drew. Delilah watched from the doorway, helpless. One drawing caught her eye. 3 people stood under a rainbow. A little girl in the center, smiling. On the left, a woman with big, curly hair. On the right, an older woman with glasses. But this time, there were no names, no mommy, no grandma, no labels. Just 3 hearts drawn above their heads. Delilah bit her lip until she tasted blood. She wanted to tear the page in half. But she couldn't, because that little girl in the center looked happier than she had ever drawn herself before. Simone met with the school counselor. "I know I don't have full legal standing yet," she said, "but I need to understand what Layla's going through." The counselor, a kind woman in her 50s, nodded. "Layla's been asking questions about her family, about who she is. That's normal. Is she confused? She's searching, but she's also resilient. What children want, more than anything, is to feel safe in the truth, even if it's complicated." Simone breathed slowly. "Does she seem afraid?" The counselor paused. "She seems ready." A week later, the court order arrived. Delilah didn't answer her door at first. She stood frozen with the envelope in her hand, like it might explode. When she finally opened it, her vision blurred. DNA test requested. Court mandated. Child. Layla H. Her knees buckled. Layla didn't understand at first. She sat in the clinic, swinging her legs from the examination table. "What's a cheek swab?" she asked. Simone smiled gently. "Just a little brush in your mouth. Won't hurt at all." Layla squinted. "Why are they doing it?" Simone glanced at the nurse, then back at Layla. Her voice was quiet, honest. To help the grown-ups understand something I already know. Layla tilted her head. What do you know? Simone reached out and took her hand. That I love you, and I always have, even when I didn't know where you were. The nurse stepped in. It took less than a minute, but everything changed in that moment. That night, Layla showed Delilah a new drawing. This one was different. 3 stick figures again, but they were holding hands. And above their heads, the rainbow didn't just have hearts. It had words. I have 2, but they both love me. Delilah tried not to cry. Layla climbed into her lap, curling against her chest. Will I have to choose? She asked. Delilah closed her eyes. No, baby. The truth doesn't ask you to choose love. It just asks you to be brave enough to hold it. Layla didn't answer, but she held her tighter. The courtroom was cold, not in temperature, but in tone. The walls were wood-paneled and clean. Everything felt orderly, except the hearts of those inside. Simone sat on one side, her lawyer beside her, fingers threaded tightly in her lap. Across the aisle, Delilah sat alone, and in a quiet room just next door, Layla sat with a court-appointed counselor, coloring while strangers decided the shape of her future. The judge, a middle-aged woman with clear eyes and a tired mouth, flipped through the documents before her. DNA confirmation, medical inconsistencies, the sworn statements from former staff, the quiet, undeniable truth. This court, she began, acknowledges that Simone Albright is the biological mother of the child known as Layla H. Simone's breath left her body. Delilah closed her eyes. However, the judge continued, we also recognize that for 6 years, Delilah Harris has been the only mother Layla has known. She raised her, protected her, and provided care in the absence of any other. Silence filled the room. This is not a matter of erasure. It is a matter of restoration. What was taken must be returned, but what was given must also be honored. The gavel came down, not like thunder, more like a bell, a quiet call to something new. Outside the courtroom, Simone waited by the door of the side room. When it opened, Layla stepped out, her rabbit tucked under her arm, her eyes searching. When she saw Simone, she ran. Not fast, but sure. She didn't say mommy. She didn't need to. She just walked into her arms and leaned in like she was stepping into the safest place she knew. Delilah watched from across the hallway. When Layla turned, she reached for her too. Delilah stepped forward slowly, unsure. Simone didn't stop her. She bent down beside Layla, and so did Delilah. And for the first time, the 3 of them stood shoulder to shoulder. Layla reached out with both hands, took one of Simone's and one of Delilah's, and whispered, I don't want to lose either of you. They didn't have to, not entirely. Weeks passed. Then months. Simone moved to a smaller apartment near Layla's school. The court granted her shared custody with primary rights. Delilah received supervised visitation, and she took every hour she was given. At first, it was awkward, broken. Layla cried some nights, wanting both women in the same room. Some days, she said nothing at all. Some days, she said too much. But little by little, the pieces began to arrange themselves. One weekend, Simone invited Delilah for dinner. It was quiet at first. Then Layla pulled out a stack of drawings and made them sit together. She gave each woman a crayon. Color with me, she said. They did. They didn't talk about courtrooms or past mistakes. They just drew 3 people under a rainbow, 1 kitchen table, 1 family, not defined by blood or legality, but by love, and the willingness to keep showing up. Simone kept the napkin. She framed it, hung it by the front door, like a reminder of how love sometimes returns in the smallest, most unexpected shapes. Not through lawyers, not through DNA, but through the hand of a child, sketching her own truth before anyone dared speak it aloud. One night, Layla came out of her room holding a new picture. It was messy, bold, bright. The house was big. The windows glowed yellow. Inside, stick figures danced in the kitchen. Outside, 2 women stood, one with a ponytail, one with silver hair. Layla pointed. "That's you, and that's Grandma. I made you tall." Simone laughed. "Thanks, baby." Delilah smiled. "Am I that wrinkly?" Layla grinned. "Nope, that's your wisdom lines." Both women laughed. Layla added, "I don't have to pick one mom, I get both." Then she added a sentence at the bottom. In big, uneven letters, she wrote, "I was never missing. I was just waiting to be found." And maybe that's what we all are, waiting to be seen, to be loved, to be held without question, to be found, not in paperwork, but in the quiet moments that draw us home. Thank you for watching. We tell these stories not just to entertain, but to remind you that love, justice, and truth can still win, even after silence and pain. If this story touched your heart, share it, like it, subscribe, and help us bring more forgotten voices into the light.